Hello, my name is Claire Speed. I'm a second-year MBA student at the Schulich School of Business in Toronto at York University. And I'm here in Ottawa at Canada's National Arts Centre. I'm here to interview two of my former colleagues, Jennifer Covert and Maurizio Ortolani. And the subject of my interview is corporate blogging for nonprofits. This is part of the requirements for a social media marketing course at Schulich under the direction of Professor Robert Kozinets.
I'm Jennifer Covert. My title here at the National Arts Centre is e-marketing officer, and I've been in this role for about 2 years. What really interests me about Web 2.0 is the great connections that it facilitates, and I think I was drawn to fulfilling this role and creating this role at the National Arts Centre because I was really interested to see how we could make connections with our audiences, with our patrons, and blogging and Twitter and Facebook and all of the great social tools that we have, as well as things like email and those more traditional online tools are great ways to do that.
My name is Maurizio Ortolani. I'm a new media producer here at the National Arts Centre. I have been here now for 12 years. And NAC New Media has three main areas of focus and they are primarily the corporate website, which is the focal point, obviously, for our marketing, communications, online sales. And more it has become the platform by which we host content created specifically online. The second area of focus for NAC New Media is Arts Alive, alvivant.ca, which is the education and outreach platform by which the National Arts Centre disseminates online its education and outreach programs. Our third area of concentration is our Hexagon project, and that looks at next generation networks, building a platform by which the Arts Centre can engage with Canadians in telementoring and fulfill its national mandate.
How many blogs do you manage? How regularly do you post? And do you have a target market in mind when you blog?
We have two blogs, basically. We have the NAC blog in English and the NAC blog in French. They have separate URLs. They have separate content with some crossover content. One of our goals when we entered into corporate blogging was that we wanted to respect, obviously, our French audience and our English audience, and one way to do that authentically was certainly not to simply write a blog post in one language and have it translated into another. So our philosophy approach in approaching it was really to have two separate blogs with separate sets of bloggers and separate content. One of our goals, which I think we have kept up with very well, is kind of 3 to 4 times a week we supply blog posts. Sometimes it's a little less, sometimes it's a little more. Sometimes they all get shoved into the Friday afternoon at 5 for some strange reason. When we set out to do corporate blogging, we were like, we're going to have a schedule and we're going to do it 3 to 4 times a week. And we sometimes do that, and like I said, sometimes our best laid plans don't quite come to fruition, but it is great to have a plan, and I'm glad that we have a plan. One of our goals with the blog is to shed some light on what happens behind the scenes at the NAC, and that's actually the kind of subtitle. It's called NAC Blog Behind the Scenes at the National Arts Centre. And to that end, there are a lot of things that happen here. We have the Mariinsky-Kirov Ballet here right now, for example, and we have Harry Manx, the guitar player, coming on Saturday night, and our blog should represent everything. So that means that there's something for everyone on the NAC blog, from classical to contemporary, and so I think when I think about our target market, it's really people who want to connect with the NAC, who want to learn more, who want to hear our stories, and that is people in Ottawa. That's people all over the world, really.
With respect to what Jennifer's done with the blogs, I think Jennifer's done a really good job. I talked a little bit about our owned properties and our leveraged properties, the social media properties. Jennifer's done a really good job at making the blog the tie that binds those two properties together, so that there is discourse flowing between our owned properties and our Facebook pages, our Flickr pages, our tweet streams, so that content that we create, whether it be a podcast or a webcast, that there is this central hub of discussion, which is the blog, and I think it's very successful.
What are your most popular blogs and why? How do you measure success, and what tools do you use?
A really popular kind of series of blog posts that we did, which is now over a year old, were profiles of our English Theatre Company members. And one of the consistently highest posts is a little profile we did on one of those members, whose name is Geordie Johnson, and he is a television actor. And I think people Google him, and he's got a real fan culture. So that's always right up there in our top posts. We also had some really interesting posts around the black and white gala, again from last year, that had some political intrigue, and we had some links coming and going from people who are political watchers, and so those are still quite high there. We're still seen as a corporation, and although what we're doing is putting a more human face on it, it's not. I don't think it's as easy or natural for someone to comment on something that a corporation is saying. I find that when I can write a post that is directly asking people their opinion or a question that they can relate to, that isn't necessarily that's something that's just very personal, then I get response.
How do you measure your blog? So quantitatively, you're saying that's how you measure success right now. What tools do you use?
We use a variety of tools. The most rudimentary tools, the most basic tools are obviously our web server stats for our owned properties. For properties that are leveraged against social media platforms, we can use Google Analytics. We can also use tools like FeedBurner to measure podcast statistics. That's all. It's all new, and so it is one of our challenges is to mine this data and to analyze this data. It is definitely a challenge for us. And even when we do have the data, the raw data, it still sometimes poses a challenge how to analyze that data. For example, a recent example, the NACOcast, which is by far our most popular podcast.
In terms of numbers? In
terms of numbers, it is now ranked, I believe, the fourth most downloaded classical music podcast on the iTunes Music Store. It is downloaded approximately 1,200 times per day, and we're struggling. It was a very rapid growth in its downloads. We're still struggling with we have all the raw data, but we're still struggling on the raison d'être, if you will. Yeah.
Great. You've also had opportunities when you've had live broadband events, and people have had the opportunity to ask the music director, Pinka Zugerman, to ask him questions live. And that's, what opportunity would they have otherwise?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, who are your bloggers? And have you ever considered a bloggers night, as I've seen done by the Knoxville Symphony and the Edmonton Symphony?
In a lot of cases, it falls to the communications officer for the different disciplines. So, for example, Sean Fitzpatrick is the communications officer for English Theatre, and he writes the blog posts there. We've got Gerald Morris, who's the communications officer for the orchestra, and he is hilarious, and he's a great blog writer, and the more blogs we get from him, the better. He's just got that kind of, he's almost got a Hollywood gossip kind of vibe to his posts, so he's very funny. We love when he posts. I'll write some blog posts here and there when we can get content from artists, like I was saying, from orchestra musicians, from Marjolaine. We're hoping to get some posts from her as well in the coming days. There's a never-ending source of really interesting content, and it's just a matter of us being able to harness it. And so every time I can get a new contributor to the blog, I try and capitalize on that.
Great.
Our community it seems to really love the behind-the-scenes access that they can get through these voices. When we do tour websites, when the NAC Orchestra goes on a cross-Canada tour or a tour elsewhere in the world, there is no more popular part of that website than the direct contributions of the musicians and their travel logs and their tour photos. People generally love that kind of intimacy and behind-the-scenes look at the life of the musician.
So considering the demographics, this is coming back to the demographic question, the demographics of the classical performance arts, which skews higher. The question is, are blogs an effective tool?
From my perspective, and from what we've been trying to accomplish here at the NAC with social media and lots of other things, anything we can do to open ourselves up and tell the stories, whether that be a blog or a Twitter account or Facebook. To me, all of those things work really hand in hand, like Maurizio was saying. We have this great kind of circuit. We're using many of the tools that are available, and I feel like the blog is a part of that.
I think we're at a very crucial point in the existence of any organization, especially a cultural organization. I think that we're at the point where we are growing our engagement and our communications, intimate communications with our community, and I think there's an opportunity to have that kind of interaction change the organization, and I think how well the organization does that, responds to that kind of interaction with this new community will greatly affect where the organization goes and how successful it is in the future. This social media is really a game changer in terms of our audience, our community.
In closing, what do you think is the future of blogging, and does it have a future here at the NAC?
In terms of the demographics, I think it's almost counterintuitive to think that of the audience that we are reaching with some of the content that we're creating online. Take, for example, our podcasts. Anecdotally, I think I've shared this with you before, our audience, our orchestra audience, the National Arts Centre Orchestra, is definitely a demographic that's skewed to the older end of the scale. But these are people this is a demographic that has time on their hands, they have resources at their disposal, and we have heard anecdotally, because we don't get age demographics from our web server statistics or our FeedBurner statistics, but we do harvest, if you will, those anecdotal experiences, and it's not uncommon for us to hear from octogenarians even that they can't wait for the next episode of the NACOcast, that they burn it to a CD and that they listen to the CD in their car on the way to the NAC Orchestra performance that evening. We get a lot of that kind of anecdotal information that we really are reaching our target audience, our demographic, our community, and hopefully we're expanding it as well.
Bringing the younger generation in
Along with
and
them, yes.
Enhancing the experience for the demographic that's already here.
Exactly.
Well, I want to thank both of you for this interview. I've really enjoyed it, and I've learned a lot, and I'm hoping that, and I expect that the audience will also enjoy and learn a lot from this video that will be posted on YouTube. And I also encourage you to, if you're interested in social media marketing, to join the social media marketing Facebook page. It's the Schulich social media marketing page. And also you can follow me on on Twitter at CMS0629. I'd like to say a special thank you to Martin Jones, who was the behind the scenes guy who is putting together this posting that will be on YouTube. And I'd like to say thanks again. Goodbye from Canada's National Arts Centre.